Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching and listening to Historian Radio's Echoes of the News, and I am Muhammad Hussain Qazi, and these are today's headlines from the past. On this day, the 2nd of January in 1905, the Russians surrendered at Port Arthur in Manchuria to the Japanese in the Russo-Japanese War, one of the biggest confrontations that occurred between a Western empire and an Eastern empire. Truly, this moment would mark a significant precedent and, of course, the final days of the Russian Empire, which would soon collapse in 1917. Moving forward, on this day in 1935, the trial of Bruno Hauptmann for the kidnapping and murder of the 19-month-old son of American aviator Charles Lindbergh and his wife, Anne, began in New Jersey. Hauptmann was found guilty and electrocuted on the 3rd of April 1936 at Trenton Prison. This heinous crime would be one of the most well-remembered and well-documented in the history of American crimes and tragedies. Moving forward, on this day in 1944, 3 American Sikorsky helicopters began patrol duty with an Atlantic convoy. The first time that helicopters would be used in warfare. That would be on this day, the 2nd of January 1944. On the subject of new aircrafts and new technology, in 1959, the USSR launched the unmanned Luna 1 to pass close to the moon, a significant moment in the history of the space race and a large step taken by the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics in the period known as the space race. Moving forward, on this day in 1988, a New York accountant waited 45 days before claiming a $3 million New York State lottery jackpot on this day. He is recorded to have said that it had saved him about $15,000 in taxes by waiting until the new year on that day. A fascinating moment in the history of lotteries. And on that note, we conclude today's headlines of the day. And now we move on to the next segment of our show, where we recount the famous births and deaths of famous figures from the 19th and 20th centuries and sometimes earlier. Born on this day, the 2nd of January 1727, was James Wolfe, British general who captured Quebec in 1759 from the French at the cost of his life. Therefore, a famous figure in the history of British Canada. And alongside him, in 1938, David Bailey, English photographer, was born on this day. And unfortunately, on this day in 17 AD, the Roman poet Ovid would pass away. And alongside him, unfortunately, on this day, the celebrated historian Livy, who wrote a 142-book history of the city, would pass away alongside the most celebrated Roman poet Ovid on this day in 17 AD. And on that note, we conclude today's headlines of the day. You are watching and listening to Historian Radio's Echoes of the News, and I am Muhammad Hussain Qazi. And these were today's headlines as history first heard them. Good night.